Go.
Cool.
So, uh, yeah, I remember talking to you, man, because I remember your tattoos. I was like, I really like, I love like tattoos. Always, I guess, catch my eye because I like tattoos. Do they have a meaning? Is there a story behind them?
Well, I mean, I have like, I don't know, 50 to 60. So
Okay.
some of them have stories. I mean, all of them have stories. Not necessarily all of them have meaning. I think after, I don't know, 20, I was like, they just really look cool. I want them, like I have them going up my neck and I have them like on my back, legs. Like I pretty much, um, well, I still have a ways to go until I'm fully covered, but yeah,
Okay.
it's my ultimate goal is to just be fully covered and everything. I've got like my hands done and ribs and all that good stuff. So
Well, I know you say there's maybe not a story to it, but I think it is meaningful. I mean, it means something. I think there's a I think there's a message behind it.
I think, yeah. So, I mean, some of them for sure. A lot of them I got while I was traveling.
Mm,
So, like the ultimate souvenir, most of my leg tattoos are from different countries, which I really like. But some of them, no, they're not necessarily meaningful. Like I have, it's hard to show on camera, but like I have this one. It's a giraffe, and he's like got two bow ties on him, and I just thought it would be funny, like where would a giraffe wear a bow tie? And so some of them are like that. Some of them are meaningful. This is the song that my parents sang to me when I was a kid, like going to sleep and stuff. So
mm.
yeah, some of them have meaning. Some of them I just thought were funny and interesting, and yeah,
Okay. I had somebody told me that a couple days ago that they got like tattoos as a souvenir of places that they visited.
yeah,
And I don't know. I just like I mean I like tattoos, but I don't know if I trust people that like one guy did my entire sleeve, and the other one over here this was split up. But I don't know, man. I don't know if I trust people enough to just get like I don't want to say random, but at different locations.
yeah. I completely understand. I mean, almost all mine are from different locations. I had one when I was living in California. I had one tattoo artist, and he did a lot of my work.
Hmm,
And so, but he's the pretty much the only one that I have like more tattoos done by.
right.
I got really lucky traveling. I mean, I found all of my artwork is just really well done. I haven't really needed touch ups on most things. Um, and I haven't paid more than $500 for a tattoo. So I'm
Oh wow.
like really happy with that. I have some big pieces.
I know
So
for yeah, as much ink as you have, man, that's pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, because my sleeve was like a process, man. It was just like,
Yeah.
I mean, he did a really good job, but it was just like, I was like, Jesus, man, I can't, at this rate, I can't see how people are completely covered.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So yeah, that
mean,
was pretty good.
yeah, all of mine I've had only one that took 2 sessions,
Mm.
and that was because she actually had to go. Like I was in Italy, and she didn't speak any English, and I didn't speak any Italian, and I
Oh
had
wow.
this crazy idea like come to me, and it's like a mermaid with butterfly wings sitting on a crescent moon, and the moon turns into a wave and her hair turns into clouds. Like it's a very abstract idea, and I had to explain this. I was like, how do I even explain this in English, let alone in a language that I don't speak?
Right.
And she nailed it. We like worked through Google Translate and everything, and it was great. And it's like the front part of my thigh, and yeah, I loved it. But she did a fantastic job. I think when getting travel tattoos, it's important to look for line work and shading quality,
Mm.
um because for the most part I wasn't getting super complex, super detailed types of things, nothing
Right.
like hyper realistic or anything like that. And so it allowed me to have a little bit more um safety and trust with the people that I was working with, because if I
Hmm.
could look at their Instagram and see their line work and look at the healed pictures of tattoos, then I could pretty well gauge how it was going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. That's interesting. Do you have any color, or is it all
I
just
do have one color tattoo. I did not like color. I had nightmares about like having, a American traditional leg sleeve, like
mm,
waking up one day and just having it and being like my aesthetic. Oh no. And in last year I actually had this idea for a rainbow tattoo. And so I have it like right on my sternum,
Mhm.
and it's just 7 flowers in rainbow colors. It's like this big, but I was like, okay, so it's in the center of my body. It's all the colors. And so for me, it made my brain was okay with it.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I would get any more color tattoos. Maybe like little tiny things here and there, but they would, for me, it would have to be like a symmetrical thing. It couldn't just do
Right.
it on one side. Even though my tattoos aren't symmetrical, like the the color would have to be.
Yeah, yeah, no, I got you. Have you ever seen somebody do that? I think it's like a, I don't know if it's white, but it's like a white colored ink, or like somebody told me one time, the same person that was telling me about the travel. I think she was saying that like some sort of white ink, if the light hits it a certain way, it looks like crazy. Like you can't really tell from a distance, but once you get up to the person, like it really looks crazy. And I've never seen that before.
Yeah. I have a friend, and she has a full white ink tattoo because
Okay.
she didn't like the starkness of black ink on her skin. And you can't see it until you look up close, but it almost looks like a really intricate birthmark. It's
Hmm.
super cool.
I'm uh I'm curious, like, so you know, a tattoo. I don't know if you've ever seen those pictures of like what it looks like if the ink. I guess it's maybe AI or something, but if the ink is like removed, it's essentially like a scar.
Hmm.
Like, I wonder if there's a way to do a tattoo like that with no ink and just like have that. I guess the skin tone tattoo, like it would be like a scar basically, but it would be like the
Yeah.
skin tone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be kind of
Yeah.
crazy looking.
I've seen that or something like that in terms of like people maybe trying to cover something up. The
Hmm.
only issue with those is if you get tanned at all or if your skin tone changes at all,
Right.
then it like you can see it a lot more because the ink's not going to change with it. But yeah, I've seen those. They're really cool too.
I don't know, man. So the tanning thing, I'm kind of like stuck between that because I'm a really big believer in sunlight. I think sunlight is very important, but at the same time, I want to take care of my tattoos. So I don't know. I've heard people say that that's a myth. I've heard people say that the sun doesn't. I mean, I guess excessive sun will, but like the sunlight that you need for health, I don't think that's enough to damage it.
No, I don't think so. I personally hate the feeling of sunscreen all over.
Yeah,
Like I have ADHD and sensory things are difficult for me, but putting sunscreen over all of my tattoos every day just to
yeah,
go outside is never something that's going to happen. Not possible for me. So, yeah, I don't think that it's that. I think going and tanning, you know, every single day and not wearing any sunscreen and stuff like that, like if I'm going to go be out in the sun all day
hmm,
and tan and everything, then of course sunscreen is a must, but daily practice, definitely not, just for my face.
yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, the sun really will, in excessive amounts, it really will age your skin.
Hmm.
Uh, but But so about you, if you want to, before we get to, before we get too far into the conversation here, if you want to tell us who you are and just kind of preface the conversation, what you do, anything you want to share about yourself, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I have my name's Jazzy. I've spent the last 2 years, like I said, traveling and just exploring. I moved to Barcelona last year and love it. It's perfect for me. And I work doing uh, strategy, execution, ongoing support, like high level executive assistant type of things for coaches and entrepreneurs.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So immediately, this is the first thing that I thought of. So like all the traveling that you've done, what have you found that people think about the U.S. that maybe we're not aware of in the U.S. unless we do travel? Because
Yeah.
I'm curious. I've heard it because I can imagine what the answer is going to be, and you don't have to get into too much detail if you don't want to. But I'm just curious what people think about us.
I think the most frequent asked question that I get about the US is like, are you guys okay? Like, how's it
Yeah.
like what's going on? Um and also people ask a lot about like guns and just
Mm,
is it like everywhere? And then I think the other main question is just like the food.
Yep.
Um, like the cereal aisle is something that a lot of
Hmm.
people can't quite grasp in the US. Like in Barcelona, for instance, the stores have like, I don't know, a couple of cereals, but it's not an aisle for sure.
Mm.
And like the Oreo
So
cookie aisle, like in different supermarkets, there's just an aisle full of different flavors of Oreo cookies, stuff like that. People are really like
So what
interested
you're
by
saying is the boxed up colored dyed toxic poison is just a US thing is basically what you're
It's
saying that we
pretty much just the US thing. Yeah, actually
okay.
coming to Europe, a lot of people who have a gluten intolerance,
Mm. Yep.
in the US, they can eat bread and gluten and
I've
pasta and stuff in the
I've
US
heard
or
that.
in
Yeah.
Europe because it's not processed as much.
Yeah. No, I've heard that. I've heard if you go to Italy and you eat pasta, it's completely different from like the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah.
Um, so I asked somebody that one time or something similar to that one time, and her response, it's kind of funny, but it's actually not funny at all. She was like, the person asked her, she was like, "Is everybody just overweight there? Is everybody just like fat there?" And it's just like that's kind of a depressing thing, man, because like the countries that you visit, and I know there's a lot of them, but are people generally in good health? Because we in the U.S. we want to think that we have for some I don't know. I think this is changing, but for a long time there we thought we had a superior health system and like, our health was like I guess maybe top tier. I think we have access to certain things. I think the medical system needs a lot of attention in the US, but I think comparatively like to other countries as far as like general health. I was talking to somebody the other day and we were talking about a statistic that said about approximately 40% of American children are considered obese. So that's like crazy, you know. I mean, I'm just curious, like, because I think it might be like these other countries and stuff. They don't have like you were talking about the cereals and stuff. If they do have it, it's probably not like half the ingredients of what we have. Um,
Yeah, I think it's not even just the processed stuff because there's a lot of process or not like process, but there's like um the what are they called? Like Cocoa Puffs. They have those
oh
here
yeah,
too, like it's not like it's just pristinely everything is great, but they do have a lot more regulations and stuff and like even the red like marinara sauce that you get at the store is
mm,
it's like tomatoes and basil and oil and like that's it, like it's like 5 ingredients max. And so that even, in all of those everyday things that you're eating, even if you're trying to stay away from the sugar and the highly processed stuff, you are finding that it's like in all of the food.
mm,
And I think if you're going to talk about health, there's so many different things woven into that, like the healthcare system, for instance, like way, way too expensive. Like my healthcare here costs me $65 a month, and
oh wow,
I don't have to pay for anything. I don't have any copays, any like nothing. It's just zero, zero, zero deductibles.
mm,
And it's top notch. I could literally go to the doctor today, and have my pick of whichever doctor I want. Um, and so there's that aspect. I think health in the US is very much tied to how much you make. Like
mm,
you have food deserts, um you have the healthcare system, you have all these different things. Even trying to eat healthy, Whole Foods is, like you can go in there and spend your entire paycheck in one
oh yeah,
sitting, in
hmm,
one grocery like errand. And
hmm,
so there's a lot that needs to be addressed in the US. I think the health is a big one. Um, but there's so many different factors feeding into the health in the US.
mm. Yeah, no, for sure. I think the concern that I've heard a lot of people talk about with that is like, I guess if it's like there's a universal healthcare system or universal basic income or something like that, I think the concern is like motivation of the people to really excel in some of those areas. Like, I think that, for example, if we're talking about doctors, if all doctors get paid the same and they're not paid based on how well they do their job, I mean, I think that's the concern. But I think also too that there's a lot that needs to be addressed because, like you said, I mean, if the average person can't really afford health care, that's an issue. That's a big problem. And I've heard people. I was listening to a guy. I think he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. He was talking about, or maybe it was Andrew Huberman, but he was talking about like an HSA, a health savings account type thing, and he was like, if you did it that way, if that was the basis of your medical system, it would completely transform the medical system. Versus where it was like the insurance companies who probably make extreme profit off of this. It would be basically you had your like a family had their system, their healthcare system, it was essentially a savings account, and it would roll over, and like you could take money from one family member's account to the other. It was a very, it sounded like a complex system, but it was like it also made a lot more sense than kind of currently what we're doing. I'll look up that guy's information and put the reference to that podcast in the description. But yeah, so what got you into like coaching with entrepreneurs and business owners? That's what
Yeah,
you said,
so
right?
yeah, I work with
Okay.
coaches. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
necessarily call myself a coach. I,
Okay.
help them in lots of different ways, but I dove into coaching a little bit, but don't feel like it's something that's aligned with me right now. Um, but I started as a virtual assistant 3 years ago and started working with my mentor at the time, and she was, just doing everything on her own, solopreneur, and really needed some help. And she was like, "I think it needs to be you." And I was like, "I've never done anything like this before. I've been working, like when I was living in California, I was working 3 different retail jobs, Starbucks, Lululemon, all these different things. I was a kickboxing instructor and nanny, but basically, like, I was working from 4 in the morning until 9 at night to
Mm,
try and make, enough money to sustain everything. Um, and so I had never done any administrative work at all, and my dad taught a lot of entrepreneurial stuff and business stuff as a kid, so it wasn't like I was so new to the entrepreneurial side of things, but I was basically starting a business which I had never done, doing something that I had never done.
mm,
Um, and it was just a lot of Googling at that point, just Googling, how do you do this? What do you do here? Researching things for her. And then I realized after about 6 months of working with her that I could turn this into a business. And so I started to tell people, I'm starting a business helping people. Let me know if you know anyone who needs help. And
mm.
lots of people need help. So um, it kind of blew up really quickly. And I had like 9 clients within 2 months of launching the business and was doing, you know, every different kind of thing and working for realtors, working as a personal assistant or a business assistant, and just kind of like doing whatever I could to learn.
Mhm.
And then realized that I had just created another grind for myself of working 16 hours a day and being exhausted and not having time for things that I cared about. So I cut back on my clients and started traveling. And I originally only planned to do 2 months of travel, and then I moved, and then it just kind of 2 more months, and then 3 months, and
Mm.
then 2 months. And then I realized the next year in 2023 that I really wanted to do an entire trip around the world for a year. And so I did 20 countries across 5 continents in I think it was like 11-ish months, but it was whole whirlwind, lots of different things that was happening, but I was still running the business while I was doing all of that.
Okay. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
So when you work with, you said you work with coaches. So like, what's something that you do with those guys or girls?
Yeah. So I mainly start with website and what I like the basis of what I do with the coaches is helping them align what they do with how they're presenting themselves. So, um, most of the people that I work with, their website does not reflect who they are.
Mm,
Um, the colors are dull and they have a bright energy, or the copy is very like cookie cutter and it's not matching their tone of voice and stuff like that. So really helping their clients connect with them from their website first. And then we work through the offers that they have. And, you know, a lot of people fall into this trap of shoulds. Oh, I'm a coach. I should do group coaching, but I hate group coaching. Okay, so why are you doing group coaching? Like that sounds just not like something for you.
Hmm.
And so really looking at their offerings and what do they bring that is so unique and how do we hone that in and figure out exactly what they want to be doing so that they're having fun and their clients are connecting with them. Um and sometimes it's giving them more offerings, sometimes it's streamlining their offerings. um and then I also work with them just like in an ongoing support kind of way. We talk about the strategies behind all the different things that we're doing and workshop and brainstorm all the different ways we can go about this, what feels good to them. Sometimes it does involve a little bit of coaching along the, you know, let's go in this direction or let's add this here. Or, you know, a lot of the thing that I really enjoy about my job is that I work so closely with these coaches and with these entrepreneurs. And so the level of trust is really high. They trust
Hmm.
me a lot and they come to me. They get to be that person for everybody else. But when they come to me, they get to just kind of like let go and I can hold the space for them when they're going through something really hard or, you know, when they're having the big success, all of that good stuff. They have a place that they can come where I can hold them and we can strategize and like have that structure
Hmm.
because they typically do that for all of their clients.
Okay. So you do a lot with these people.
Yeah.
Sounds like, if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like there's an emphasis on, like, you sort of emphasize like the website, the marketing, maybe the online marketing. Maybe there's like it sounds like there's some strategy involved,
Yeah,
and then
I don't necessarily do marketing
okay,
in terms of like on social media or
right.
posting or getting them clients. That is not something that I'm interested in doing, but I work on the like what would you market, you
Hmm.
know? So the website, the actual person, giving them things that they can market, that they can take to Instagram and push out, or they can bring to LinkedIn, that they can push out, put in an email blast, all that stuff. I do help with some content writing and stuff like that, but I don't take on the marketing aspect of things.
Okay. Yeah, I think, man, like, so I started a coaching business like last year. Like, I specifically work with entrepreneurs and business owners, athletes, on the mindset. And I did not realize before I did this that there are like, man, there's no shortage of coaches on the internet.
Mhm.
I didn't realize that was and I'll tell you like how a lot of people do this is they use a podcast as either marketing or lead generation. And I have mixed opinions on that. I've expressed that before on the podcast, but like I started the podcast first. A lot of people I think do their coaching business first and then start a podcast to help the coaching business. And so, but I started the podcast first because I just wanted to talk to people like in different spaces and learn things from different people. But yeah, they're like, man, there's so many, like there's literally for anything that you can think of, any probably scenario, there's probably a coach for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a market that has blown up in the last couple of years for
Mm,
sure. And it's really interesting because there are coaches who have been coaching for 5, 10, 15 years. And then there's like this new wave of coaches
mm-hmm,
who kind of say, I have lived experience, I'm going to coach.
mm-hmm.
And that is the most important distinction, I think, behind finding a coach that really knows what they're doing versus the lived
Yep.
experience. And that was the feeling that I was getting with when I started coaching was like I was sharing my lived experience, but I wasn't a coach. And so
Mhm.
that's why I pulled back.
Right.
Um, and it's cool to see people coming into this space because while there's a lot of coaches, there's a lot of people who need coaching.
Mhm.
If you think about any other job, there's a lot of therapists, there's a
Yep.
lot of doctors, there's a coffee shop on every single block in Barcelona, like, and they're all still thriving. So it's not necessarily about, like, oh, there's so many, everybody
Mhm.
is a coach. It's more about what can you offer to people
Right.
in the um I'm trying to find the word, but like the appropriate way, with the, like, you wouldn't trust a therapist just because they have lived experience. Like,
Right.
they need a little bit of social proof to show that they
Yep.
know what they're doing, that they um have, what it takes to help you. And
Mhm.
I think the difference between a coach and, say, a mentor um is that social proof, the credentials, certain things like that. um a mentor is going to be somebody who's sharing their personal experience to help you and guide you in different things. um and so, yeah, seeing that difference is really important now that we're seeing such a high influx of coaches coming into the market.
Yeah. You mentioned sort of lived experience, and I think that's a good way to put it because I think that's something that a lot of coaches kind of do, maybe sort of use to offer this credit. You're talking about this credibility. I've noticed that, like, so in my space, I wouldn't say compete because a lot of times we can work in complementary ways, but I know a lot of people in the space, like in that I'm in, it's technically business coaching, but a lot of those guys are going to focus on like the numbers, teams of like 10 plus 20, 20 plus people. But like, so what I'm getting at is like, there's such a, being specific on what you do is really such a, it's important because like you, there's a coach for everything. There's a coach in any space that you can think of, but when you know exactly what it is that you're going to narrow down on and what you're going to focus on, I think that really sort of gets through all the weeds of it. You know what I mean? Because you can focus on what you think you can help people with. And I think a big part of me is like, is that personal experience, because I have a business outside of this that I've had for 11 years, and I've learned a lot through that business. And so that's why I say specifically with entrepreneurs and business owners, salespeople, or athletes, or people in that space, because I consider myself to some degree one of those in different areas of my life. But I think that's important for a person to understand that, to understand like where, because you kind of have to, you really kind of want to stay in your lane. You know what I mean? Because I would not feel comfortable. Like a lot of people that I meet that are like potential coaching clients, we're not a good fit for each other because their scenarios like so different. You know, and also too, one thing that I do love about the podcast is help me create an online network. So if I can't help somebody, it's very likely that I've met somebody either through the podcast or in that space, that can help them. But but yeah, you mentioned about like this sort of looking at the market and seeing all these coaches. I don't really, and this is I've said this about other businesses too. Like you look like landscaping, um, mobile detailing. Those are markets that people would say are heavily saturated, but I don't think that's a good way to look at it. That should not deter you from starting a business in that space, because if it is saturated, if there's a lot of people doing it, that means there's a big demand for it. You just have to figure out a way to set yourself apart from the people who are already doing it, and then you could probably be successful at it. But I think that does sort of turn a lot of people away because they think it's going to be hard to get business in that space when there's already so many people doing it. But again, like you said, there's a demand for it. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest key to what you're saying is to, like, and this is what I work with my coaches so much on, but the alignment aspect of who you are. Um, it's what I've been focusing on throughout all of my travels and through my business and all of that. But really, what do I like to do and what do I want? And how do I want to set up my business, and really focusing on that shift from the scarcity mindset into abundance. But instead of having like these ideas of, oh, I'm not going to be able to find the people if I'm doing it this way or this way, or if I get into this market, then like I'm going to fail. Instead of looking at it from that lens, it's like I'm going to get into this market and be exactly who I am, and the people who like me are going to come to me.
Mm. Yep.
And that is the biggest lesson I've learned in the last year, is that people who want to work with me want to work with me so badly. I just had a call yesterday with somebody who has been wanting to work with me for since July of last year, and said, was speaking to her mentor, and he's like, what do you need to get started in your business? Like, really, what do you need? And she's like, I need Jazzy. And he's like, okay, get me a proposal. Like, um, potentially I may be able to invest in this. And so, like, the people that want to work with me, that like my energy, are going to want to work with me regardless. If they don't want to work with me, they're going to find somebody else that's a better fit. But realistically, at least in my business, I need 10 people who want to work with me, who have a need to work with me, who have money to work with me, like all of the things that I need. I only need 10 people for
Mm.
that. That's not very much, like
Right.
there are 10 people in the world that want my business, that want to work with me specifically.
Mm.
And I'm finding them, I'm attracting them. I just redid my website, and it is my energy to a T. It talks about my tattoos, it talks about my ADHD, it talks about traveling and living in Spain. It has fun and silly photos on it. But it's still very professional. And so some people aren't going to like that. They're going to say, "No, I want somebody who's very um like I do things, I think a lot in color. And so I want somebody who's like a navy blue, who's very structured, who's very professional." That's amazing. That's not me. If you
Mm.
want me, I'm pink and bright yellow and bubbly and fun and sparkly, and I will still get everything done that you need to get done.
Yeah. I think we're sort of all craving that authenticity because I think,
Yeah.
especially in and like I know with coaches, you mentioned credibility earlier, like you are essentially marketing yourself because you are the service, like who you are, your energy, your knowledge, your expertise, like you are the service. But I think just in general in the business world, I think we're all, and I mean, even outside of the business world, I think we're all sort of craving that authenticity because for a long time, like politicians and people on TV and news, like you only saw like one side of a person. But then long form podcasts came out and completely changed that. Like now you have people who go on some of the biggest podcasts in the world and they talk for several hours at a time and you see like different sides of these people. And I think it helps you relate more, because you see that these people are like just real people. But then it's also too that I think we as people, like I think everybody's sort of craving that sort of because I don't know, this it's weird when you see like a business person who's trying to represent a company and obviously they're trying to like keep everything put together and there's a presentation there, but at the same time, like that there's a part of this person that's missing that you don't really see at that initial, like on the initial outside. You see what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
don't know. I think we're just sort of all craving that. And I honestly think social media has a lot to do with that because I think social media has completely changed the way that our relationships are with people. I mean, usually we see the best sides of a person on social media, the best parts of their lives. And it's just like, I don't know, man, it's crazy. It's almost like we feel like we're in this, Truman Show type thing, of like this is obviously not real. Like where are the real people at? And then you have conversations with people, and then you have deep conversations. You get into things, and I don't know. It's just enlightening, I guess, and it's also refreshing too. You know,
Yeah.
like I just imagine if you can imagine like an aquarium, like a fish aquarium or something like that, or what is it? That's an aquarium, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a fish aquarium, and there's like the fish, but there's like a fake environment, you know what I mean? And there's like that's clearly not real. Um, It's kind of sad for the fish, to be honest. I don't really support zoos or anything like that, but it's like a fake environment. You know what I mean? It's not like natural to them. I just kind of feel like that's where we're at with this social media thing. It's like it's not real. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I have so much, like, I literally was taking notes as you were talking because I have so much that I love to talk about on this topic. I think people are tired of this narrative that we've been sold for so long, that there's one path to life and that we need to follow the rules to be successful, and, like, we don't need that.
Hmm.
We don't need these rules. Like, some things have kept us safe, in the past, whatever, have kept people in power and people not in power. We but we are really seeing a lot of people kind of waking up and realizing that we don't need to follow the rules. We don't need to have this path, this white picket fence narrative that we're sold. We don't need to have that. We can make different paths for ourselves. I agree that social media, we see a lot of the good sides, and I have definitely fallen victim to the comparison and seeing, like, different things about relationships and these things that I yearned for so long, and building ideas based off of those 7-second snippets that you see on social media. I do think that it can be damaging, but on the flip side, there is a ton of freedom within social media. It really does allow us to break the rules and connect in community in ways that we haven't seen before, and to rise up. Like, the reason they care about controlling social media, and I mean, like, on a government level, is because it's dangerous. And so, I think people are really waking up to this idea that you don't need permission to be yourself. You can just show up as yourself, and you can be, multidimensional, and show those dimensions to people, and not have to hide to people please, to make yourself bite sized so that people can digest you, like, just
Hmm.
be the loud, over the top, or the quiet and kept to yourself. Whatever feels right for you, there are going to be people that attach to that, or are attracted to that. I tell people a lot that one of my best friends, she talks to me about how she's felt like she's too much her whole life. And I'm I have worked so hard to never tell somebody that they're too much, because they aren't too much. I they're too much for my needs. But that's not on them. That's just
Hmm.
me. Okay, so then I'm going to make the decision to find people who are more matched to my frequency, but it's not on them. They have a different frequency that they're going to find other people who are going to be a match for that.
Hmm.
And really looking at it from that lens, instead of putting it on somebody else to be they're too much, you can just take ownership and say, they're not the person for me. No judgment, nothing about you, nothing about me, just not the person for me. And moving that way and building that authenticity and the genuine authenticity, really, I think that's the direction that we're moving in. And people, I don't know. I think it's going to change the world.
Hmm. No, yeah, for sure. I think I don't know, man. I think offering a watered down version of yourself to somebody, like, I don't think anybody is ever really truly happy like that. I think
Mhm.
that if you offer your a watered down version of yourself because this it's not right for this person or whatever it is, I think you devalue what it is that you have to bring to the world, which is like something that's unique. And I think there's a lot of talk about purpose on this podcast, and I think one of the reasons that we have sort of this it's like this longing, like a lot of us feel like something's missing, like we're supposed to be, something's missing, there's something that we're supposed to be doing or supposed, pursue or whatever. And I think a big piece of that for a lot of us is bringing that unique part of ourselves to the world, because you're right, you might be too much or too little or not enough or not right for somebody, but that's okay, because the world is a very big place. First of all, the world is a very, very big place, and nobody's saying that you have to like fit into anything or offer anything of value to the world because you are yourself and that is the value. But I don't know. I just, man, because I've talked to a lot of people, and I think you mentioned sort of breaking away from cycles. I think a lot of people are still in this belief of like, you know, pursuing a certain career because their parents did it and their grandparents did it or whatever. And it's just like a lot of people in that space are not happy doing that, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, to do something, to do a thing for 50 or 60 years or however long, 40 years, however long it is a person works, to do something for that long, like I feel like it needs to be something that's really aligned with who you are.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. I I like what you said about the purpose, and I think that we often attach purpose to what we do and say that, like, oh, I help people by doing XYZ and that's my purpose. But one of the things that I've really been working on is this idea that purpose doesn't come from what you do. Purpose just comes from your energy. Like, it's not about searching for a purpose on the earth. It's about, like, I bring my energy, and that is my specific energy, is exactly what this world needs right
mm,
now. Like, and that energy, bringing that energy to whatever I do, and not in a way of like, oh, I have to be happy all the time and I have to be helping all the time or anything, but just me being authentically sad, angry, happy, excited, all of the feelings that come up, and just authentically myself. That's, at least it's my purpose. And I feel like that attaching purpose to who we are instead of what we do makes it a lot easier to find it, because we just have to go within.
mm, yeah, that's a good point. This is crazy, man, because you've traveled a lot and you've been kind of all over the place. So, you lived in California? Is that kind of where you grew up at?
Yeah.
Did you ever live anywhere else in the U.S.?
No, just in California. I spent a month in Baltimore while I was traveling. But
Okay.
otherwise, no, just in California.
Okay. So what I was getting at was I don't know if people are aware of like a lot of the things they believe about who they are or what they should do in life or whatever. I don't think a lot of people realize that that's really a lot of that is based on where they were, like where they grew up and where they live currently. Because I tell people a lot, man, and I know a lot of people know this. If you can get out of your hometown and especially get out of the culture that you're in, like you'll learn so much about different people. That's one of the reasons that one of the things I really love about this podcast, because I've talked to people from all over the earth, literally all over the world, and I just don't think we're aware of like how much we believe or that we think we believe really comes from our environment. Like the U.S., it's sad to say, but the U.S. is split up between like there's like different ideologies and different portions of the U.S. and like where you live a lot of times uh really sort of directs what you think about the world and about culture, but it's your responsibility to sort of break out of that and see things for yourself. But I don't know. I think that it really, but like you mentioned earlier about cycles, sort of this cyclic um, belief throughout generations, and that really bothers me because there's a lot that's changed in the world over the past 50 years, except the this sort of matrix that we live in about like get this job and do this career and you're supposed to like do XYZ. um Whoever came up with like supposed to, like, where did that even come from? You know what I mean? Like, who says you're supposed to pursue this route? And I think that's like anytime I meet a person who travels or has done a lot of traveling, they're usually not always, but usually a very open-minded person. And I think it takes that to really sort of, I don't know, maybe open your mind to things that you're not aware of. But like I said, I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are really constricted about like their culture and their immediate sort of space, like where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned from one of my clients a couple of years ago. She had this term called, like, she would say, stop shooting on yourself.
Hmm.
Um and it just, it made it really easy for me to recognize, like, oh, I'm shooting on myself right now. And I think traveling really helps, and not just vacationing, but traveling.
Right.
It really helps to realize that you don't, there's no specific way,
Mm-hmm.
that you have to travel or that you have to do things. And the shoulds come out, for me at least, they came out really clear. I was in Japan, I remember, and I was going through a really, really hard time. I had been full time traveling for just over a year, and I was in the first like 4 months of 2023. I was traveling like nonstop, every 3 days, moving to a different city, backpacking across Asia while running my business. So it was really busy time. And I was also dealing with a lot of heavy personal things. Um, and I remember this one day when I was in Japan, and I was like, I'm in Japan. I should like go out and explore and whatever. And I could not get out of bed. I was just having such a hard day. Um, and I realized this trip is just mine. I'm here alone. If I sat in this room, like, yeah, it would be a little bit of a bummer to go all the way to Japan and not leave the room, but there's no thing that I should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same when I was traveling. I'm not a big food person. Food has always been really difficult for me with ADHD, but then also I have something called ARFID, which just makes food really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's favorite thing to tell a traveler is, "Oh, you're there. You should try this. You have to try this." And it's some obscure food that they tried, and they were like, "Yeah, it tastes like chicken, whatever." And for me, that's like, no, I'm just not going to do that. Um, I'm not going to spend majority of my budget on food. I'm going to eat butter noodles in my Airbnb or my hotel and be fine. That's good for me. Yes, I'll go out, I'll try different foods and cuisines that I want to, but it is not something that I place on myself that I should be doing, or I have to, or I'm supposed to do that. Because really, when you're saying that, it's saying that you shoulds basically validate this idea that there is one path to take.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are not on that path, you should be back on that path. But I really feel, I hear what you're saying about the 50 years, we haven't seen a lot of change, but I feel like actually within the last 5-10 years, we're seeing a ton of change. We're seeing it become more and more common that people are taking the different paths, that people are saying, yeah, you can make money online and you can travel if you want to, and you aren't locked into this 9 to 5 corporate nightmare that we have been sold. And there's just different paths. There's just, if there's nothing wrong if you enjoy the 9 to 5 and you.
Hey, are you still with me? If you're talking, I can't hear you.